Well, Bree, thank you so much for coming on the Mindful Mama podcast.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here. I really enjoyed your book. Today was fun. Book about work, which is sort of feels like those things don't like go together for many people, and so many parents, right? So many parents are overwhelmed with
Yeah.
work, with family. In your research, what patterns have you seen about why we overwork, especially as parents?
Yeah. I mean, it comes at us from all different places. So there's the very obvious, like, we work to make money and we feel like we have to accomplish these things in order to fulfill our roles for paid work. And so therefore we're working a lot to try and fulfill our end of the employment agreement. But it's actually far more complex and deeper than that, I find. Uh, Most tricky is not just working hard because or overworking because we think we need to. For me personally, and a lot of other working parents I know, we work so hard because we like it, because it's actually kind of addicting. And it gives us all sorts of things besides money, which is validation, accomplishment, a sense of identity, a sense of safety, like I'm needed and valued in this role, a sense of power, purpose, like
Mm-hmm.
all things which are good, but they can start to rewire our brains in the same way a video game would or social media, in that it can be addicting to get the high performance review, to be putting work out into the world. Again, all good things. The trouble comes really at the opportunity cost of all of that. Like if you love working and you conceivably could do it nights and weekends because you're feeling important and powerful, and that's all good, but the question is, if you only have 24 hours a day, what price are you paying in order to overwork in that way? And so I find the solutions sometimes need to come from, I mean, there's a million and one productivity hacks, right? Like on how to work smarter, not harder. But there's also, we need to consider too, what inside us is driving us to work so hard, to potentially be overworking. Sometimes and it's even an escape from our lives. Like I know when my daughter was first born, I was like, you mean I get to finish a cup of coffee while it's still hot at work? Like, I'll take that. That sounds really good. So, multifaceted problem, but that also means we have many solutions.
Yeah, and I've had Oliver Berkman on and talked to him about that. And
Love
the
him.
thing about productivity, he pointed out is that you're like, oh, I'll just be more productive, but then if you're faster at sending your emails out, you're going to get more emails. Like there's
Yes.
stuff that starts to fill it, things just more comes to sort of fill in if you're aiming for productivity sort of to get to solve the problem.
Yeah. There was a leader I worked with who would tell his team, the faster you realize work is a bottomless pit, the better, because you'll never reach the bottom. There's always more stuff that would be good to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm a huge fan of Oliver Berkman. He blurbed the book even, but because if we're never going to reach the bottom of work, then we definitely need a different strategy. And we need to acknowledge why we're trying to get to the bottom of our work pits, and how we can, in some ways, distance our identities and our sense of accomplishment and meaning and purpose from work, um, such that what's left, the time that we've freed up, can be filled with family, friends, leisure, rest, all the other really important parts of our lives.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. It kind of overlaps in some ways with parenting in a lot of ways, like where a lot of us, I think, we're trying to find the sense of worthiness
Yeah.
from either parenting or from work, right? And these are sort of these two big buckets that are trying to give us that we we were taught to work hard at these things.
Yeah.
We're taught from a young age to get good grades and work hard and do all your homework and get everything done, and then we apply that to our families, to our kids, and to our work lives.
Hmm. Yes. And like I know as a woman too, like I feel like I've been surrounded by these messages of like, be the good girl, get the good grades, do what you're told, please people, don't disappoint. Like that's been also my own journey and
Yeah.
like what does it feel like is expected of me? And they're impossible standards that I never agreed to, but somehow just like I ended up swimming in this water. And so it is a question then of can we be worthy simply because we woke up this morning, simply because I'm a mother who loves her daughter, but because the most valuable parts that you bring of yourself that you bring to work often are not the quantity of emails you can crank out or the quantity of work, especially in knowledge work professions. It's not the quantity, it's the quality of thinking. It's the quality of relationships that you have within a business. Like many things that don't require a brute force approach to working. And believe me, I have worked nights and weekends for years. Like I'm very familiar with that lifestyle. And yet I don't know, or rather, there's a drop off in terms of what we are actually delivering to the business when we work into our 70th, 80th hour of work in a week. And so there's some hope, I think, for being able to detach a little sooner and sort of retach to the rest of our lives.
So I love it because your book is like, you're kind of against the grind, right? Like, you're like, it shouldn't be a grind. And we don't want to overwork. And also, beyond that, to even push the envelope even more, you, your book is all about finding more fun at work, which is so interesting. And is I don't think a lot of people associate that term with their work. So how do you define fun at work? Like what feels authentic and meaningful for grown-ups who are juggling a lot and have a lot of pressure?
Yeah, for sure. So I like the term fun because it feels very visceral. It's very childlike. I like that it doesn't have like a very strict definition in that usually you can tell if you're having fun. Like I'm having fun right now. Like this is stimulating and interesting and it's fun to talk to you and listen to the question. You can also always tell if you're not having fun. Like I'm sitting with a hunched back doing my expense reports, or I'm trying to like prepare for this board meeting that has me like totally scared out of my skin. And so it's a visceral quality, but I think what I like about that is our experience of our lives can't be defined. I mean, obviously, happiness researchers try to quantify it, or engagement surveys try and, you know, have you on a 5-point scale say how much you're enjoying, your
Mm-hmm.
work. But ultimately, like the title of the book today was fun, I think is a very simple metric for if you're enjoying your days and therefore if you're enjoying your lives. If at the end of the day, you think to yourself, well, there were some tricky parts, there were some funny parts, that part was really bad, but then we recovered there. But on the whole, today was fun. Like, I think if you can say that most days of your life, you're killing it. Like, you really, really won.
But is that compatible with getting all the stuff done, being responsible,
Yes.
producing for your workplace, all of that stuff?
Yes. Okay. So, for sure, there's sometimes I think about it, there's like a kind of fun that's like icing fun, which is like, the apocryphal like ping pong table, like, or that work app happy hour, or that sort of stuff that's not working and all play. Like I'm very pro ping pong and pro happy. Like that's all good stuff, right? But I think yeah, the straw man version of that argument is if you do too much of that, you're not getting the work done.
And you wouldn't feel purposeful either.
Right.
Yes.
But I would
Yeah.
argue actually, like, if that's the icing, the cake of work is also fun. So if I come up with an idea that I think is like really strategically sharp and could help our project or our team solve something, and I share that idea, and someone's like, "Oh, Brie, that, oh my God, that I didn't think of it like that. That's so smart." And I'm thinking like, "Oh my gosh, like kind of pleased with myself. And it was fun to come up with that idea. And I was creative, and now I get to build that idea with colleagues who I enjoy. Like that's also fun. And so it's not that fun needs to be at odds with productivity. I mean, getting things done feels good. I think we all know that. Like whether it's something big and strategic and profound and creative for the business, or it's just something simple, like you've checked off a whole bunch of to-dos, that it feels good. And so I'm trying to sort of expand the notion of how might we find fun in the day-to-day, whether, no matter what your role is, whether you're an accountant or a landscaper or a barista or a marketing manager, is there something within your role? And again, not the ping pong tables, but something actually within your role where you can share some of your own creativity, where you can create something impactful. Like I even think of you know, a marketing copywriter who writes some really clever copy and is like chuckling to themselves. And they're like, hey, work colleague, check this out. And then they laugh like, oh my God, that's so good.
Yeah.
Like you're doing the work, but it doesn't have to be painful. I think what I find frustrating is that we sometimes equate pain with greatness, or, we say nothing worth doing is easy. And it's just not strictly true that doing really impactful work doesn't require pain. You only get paid because you create value. You don't get paid because work is painful. And so if we think about how could I make whatever task I have at hand more fun, if we even stop to ask the question, that opens up a whole bunch of possibilities. Like, do I want to write 10 performance reviews hunched over my computer? Or do I maybe just like want to walk to a park nearby and do them with a hotspot and see if a colleague wants to come, and maybe we high five each other when we finish each one? That there's so many ways that we can imbue humanity and creativity and movement and play in the actual cake of our work, if you will.
It's funny you mentioned a lot of different jobs as you were speaking there, and it made me think of a job that I had when I was a teenager. And because I've been working since I was 12. I was like a maid when I was 12. But anyway, when I was a teenager, I worked at Dunkin' Donuts at the end of my street. And a lot of times it was a grind. It was busy, whatever.
Sure.
But then there was these afternoons where I worked with Diane Pimenta, and she and I, this was a long time ago, where it was like pre-fancy coffees. We like developed a new strategy for iced coffee where we would melt the sugar at the bottom with hot coffee first and flip the whole thing over. And anyway, people would come from places, towns around. This is in Rhode Island where they're everywhere to get our iced coffee. And then we would just like look at each other in the beginning and we'd be like, because we wanted tips, we're like, we're gonna smile at everybody. And we would be like, yeah. And then we would like force ourselves to smile. And then we would end up having so much fun. And we were doing an incredible job. Like we were making the coffee better. We were smiling at everyone. We got great tips and we were psyched by the end. And it could have been it could be a real grind, but we ended up making it really fun. And we were more effective ultimately by doing so.
For sure. I love everything about that story. I wish I could have gotten my coffee from you back in the day.
We did have some fans. Actually, I had one guy. We got gifts through the drive-thru occasionally. It was very strange. Okay, but go ahead.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm sure if there were social media, I'm sure you would have had a cult following.
Oh my God.
Like you have to go get your coffee. But I love that story so much, like for about a billion different reasons. But one, you made your fun. Like you took whatever was in front of you and you found a way to do it with a friend and creativity and a joy, and it was impactful. And I can only imagine the customers. I mean, clearly this was effective from the customers. Like you can always tell as a customer or as a client when an organization, somebody is enjoying themselves. Like when your barista's having fun,
Mm.
it's magnetic. We're like, oh, I want to be having fun too. Like they're expressing themselves. I want to express myself too. It's like, it's just such a nice way to run a business, but also just sort of be in a community where you're inspiring other people. I mean, maybe someone else went off to work that day with their coffee and was like, you'll never guess how good this coffee is. And, anyway, I think it's fantastic.
Okay, but not everybody can have the great pleasure and joy of working at a Dunkin' Donuts. So
Yeah, it's true.
there are a lot of different work cultures. And in Today Was Fun, you talk about the idea of like reimagining work culture. So I know there are parents who listen that are in leadership roles. What advice do you have for them, for parents who want to model a healthier, more joyful work environment?
Yeah. So, in any role in leadership, whether you have like one direct report or you're leading a team or a whole organization, you are the culture maker. Like people are looking to you for, and I would just loosely define culture as what's normal here, what's accepted and won't get you any side eye and is generally a thing that we do. And so I would think of what you want to model is the kind of thing that you would want modeled for you. So, to be more specific, I love when leaders model their own humanity. And you can do this lots of ways. Instead of wearing a super professional, you look put together, like you spend all this time on your outfit this morning, maybe show up in like stretch joggers, especially if you're going to go for a run after work. It just sort of models I'm a human, I value my exercise, and I'm just as smart when I'm wearing my stretch joggers as when I'm wearing my like slacks or whatever it is. You can also model balance. And so I would always love, especially in the summers, if your company does like a summer Friday sort of thing. I worked with one leader who was so adamant on leaving loudly at like noon or 1 on Fridays. Summer Fridays being the sometimes prevalent custom of sort of knocking off early in the summer months.
Sure, yeah.
And she was so adamant about it being loud because what she was trying to do is glamorize balance. And I love thinking of balance as glamorous because we often think of like, oh, if I'm going to sneak out early on a Friday, like even the word I use, sneak, it feels like, oh, try not to schedule any meetings or like send some emails and I'm just going to like slink out. But in her team, there wasn't this assumption that if you were leaving early on a Friday, you were underworking or underperforming. It was actually the opposite, that if you were still there at 4 p.m. on a Friday, like, why weren't you efficient enough to get all your work done? Like, what happened there? And so not to like shame anybody, but I love that the balance was on the side, or the glamour was on the side of balance. What are those things that you can use your power to model for others that has people being more themselves, having more balance in their life, being more creative? Also, maybe you're the one as a leader to share the crazy half-baked idea. And then therefore others are like, well, maybe I'll share my crazy half-baked idea too, because that's what promotes a culture of creativity. So a few options for you there.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I definitely know that as somebody who's worked in creative work my whole life, that you have to have a lot of terrible ideas.
Yes. Oh my God, so many.
20% that are good.
Yes.
So there needs to be, it's all about quantity, really. It's about numbers rather than quality sometimes. Or quality comes from quantity, I think.
Yes. Yeah,
Those ideas.
absolutely. It's like, it's just acknowledging that we are not machines, we're humans, and this is how human brains work. They work by sort of flushing out bad ideas. They work by socializing ideas. They work by somebody saying a crazy idea, which sparks another idea for you. Like that, honoring that that's how human brains work. It's not that you sit down in a 30-minute meeting, you're like, best ideas, go. And then, it's an acknowledgement that we work for our brains as much as our brains work for us.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so how about a parent who's in a work culture that's kind of like a a grind culture. Um, for that parent, how can they take small steps towards more joy and ease at work without risking their job, risking their livelihood?
Yeah. Okay. So one fun tactic and one scheduling tactic. So
Great.
um, actually, let me start with the scheduling one. It's a little more boring. If you work in a culture where it's normal to work all day long, nights, weekends, be available 24/7, and you're looking for more ease, what I often find in clients that I consult for, but also in my own life, is that work takes your life first, and then your kids, your health, your leisure gets the scraps. Like whatever happens to be left over. Like, oh, I finished working at 9:30. I have like 30 minutes to binge watch TV or maybe go like kiss my kid goodnight. So instead of letting work take first dibs, what I always try and do is I try and get there into my calendar first. So my daughter's art fairs, softball games, my doctor's appointments, her doctor's appointments, those go on the calendar far in advance, months in advance, because I know it's so much harder to accept a work meeting, then go and decline it and be like, oh, sorry, I really want to be at my daughter's game, but that feels wrong to say. If I can get those on the calendar first, I have a much better shot, not 100%, but a better shot at saying, oh, I have another commitment, then I can't make it. Let's schedule this another time. So that's one of my best personal tricks for making sure that you get dibs on your own life.
Yeah.
The fun tip, like if culturally your company is really buttoned up and you feel like you have to put on your business mask every day, my favorite tip is to try a little act of micro mischief. And this is nothing that threatens the bottom line, nothing that threatens your job. It's a little sort of like a dropper of food coloring into the water of a very formal culture. So you can think of this as, you're wearing your very professional clothes, but maybe you're wearing your socks with a crazy print. Or maybe you're wearing shoes. One of my colleagues had these amazing loafers with a fuzzy lining. They just looked divine. And so everyone's like, Mitch, where did you get these slippers? And it became a topic of conversation. And so it could be something in your dress. It could be something even just like in the way you're sitting. If everybody has perfect posture around a meeting table, maybe you're sort of like leaning back and, stirring your tea or even folding your legs up. It's little acts of subversion that show that you are human, that you have a personality, that you want to self-express in some way. Or maybe if you have a deck or a report of some sort, maybe you put a little joke in there, or maybe you use a ridiculous font, like a little papyrus for your headings, and someone like, that looks ridiculous. And you're like, yes, thank you. Like, that's just for fun. And what I find, sometimes I call these people give no shits role models, which is something that, I don't know, it doesn't really roll off the tongue, but it's a term I coined for myself. If I see someone being a little bit more human than the rest of the room, I'm attracted to that energy. Like, that's compelling. Mm-hmm. And so not only does it feel good for yourself to show up as a slightly more human, like maybe you're doodling a frog during the meeting and someone's like, cool frog. Not only is it good for you, but it also starts to plant seeds of, it's okay for us to be a little less formal, a little bit less professional. Because none of these things, like funny socks or doodling a frog, makes you worse at your job. None of it threatens productivity, but it does allow us to show up to work in a way that doesn't require a business mask or feeling like we have to be somehow subhuman or bionic in order to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like I'm thinking, how can I have fun today? And I'm in a kind of a rigid environment. And yeah, doodling a frog. I mean, that reminds me of when I was a teacher in a school system and I would go to the meetings and I would do a lot of doodling in the staff meetings.
For sure.
But as the art teacher, I was a little like, yeah, they have you have a little bit more permission to be a little more creative. But yeah, I think you could see that in a lot of ways. I imagine like maybe a little mini rubber ducky and pop it on someone's desk for fun.
For sure. And the thing to remember, like the one of the best things about consulting with CEOs and big executives, Fortune 500 companies, 500, 150, they also want to be having fun. Like I remember before I started to get in those rooms, I'm like, oh, these are very professional people who only respond to arguments about the bottom line and they are, on top of everything. And then to be in the rooms with them, they want to have fun too. They also want to feel like themselves. They also have kids. And so I think when we start to crack this false assumption that everyone else is professional and I'm the human, and if I show any of my humanity, I will be somehow othered. No, the truth is everybody else is wearing their business mask too. And if you take that off underneath that, they're also humans who just want to have a good day, who do want to spend time with their kids, like mostly if they're not being jerks, who like also would like to doodle from time to time. And the trick is in all taking off those business masks together to allow for some of that humanity. And so maybe it does start with the art teacher who doodles a frog, and then before you know it, the math teacher is like doodling some trig functions or something, whatever it is. It's a bit of permission to live your life at work as a human, because we are, and sometimes we forget that.
Well, it's funny because one of the most effective things we can do as parents and in our parenting is be more playful, to
Yes.
be a little lighter, to have a little bit more of a sense of fun. And that gets kind of, sometimes the energy to do that gets sapped by burnout and overwork, right? So it's this sense of lightness and fun. That is missing sometimes in both places, that can be make us feel really heavy. And I wonder if it's like, just like when I'm talking about mindfulness, I say that it's really wonderful. You can actually practice mindfulness in any kind of area of your life. You can practice mindful walking, dishwashing, all of those things. But often we're not going to really actually remember to do that unless we have some sort of little anchor or formal anchor in our day where I say, okay, maybe after right before I go to bed at night, I set a timer for 60 seconds, 2 minutes, and I just breathe quietly and I invite that quiet in my life. And I have a practice to help me remember to bring these moments of presence and mindfulness into the other areas of my life, right? So I wonder if it's somewhat the same with playfulness, because I remind parents about playfulness, like use your best robot voice, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh yeah, and maybe practice it like you might be reminded about mindfulness, and practice it for a couple weeks, and then it's making differences in your life. But then we just get in this stream of things and our rhythms, and we forget. And I wonder if it's the same with being playful and bringing a sense of I can have fun into my work. Is one of the problems is that we just forget. We don't even realize that we could in the first place.
Yes. Yeah, because we have, I think, this false assumption that it's not efficient. And sometimes play or humanity at work, honestly, it's not efficient, but it is effective. And sometimes we get those two things confused. And so, speaking of like rituals or how to embed it, one of my favorite tools is called a check-in, which at the top of a team meeting, or it could even be a one-on-one, at least once a week, could be every day, if you do like a stand-up kind of thing. In the meeting, you say, how's everyone doing? On a scale of 1 to 5, you're going to hold up your hand. It could be a fist if you're having a truly awful day, or a 5 or a 2. You go 1, 2, 3, go. And then once around the room, about 30 seconds each, everyone just says why. And it could be something about work, like I'm stressed about this meeting later. Or it could be like, oh, it's my birthday this weekend. Or like, oh, my kid won the championship, something, something. And like, we're so excited for them. And so we went out to celebrate last night. Also, I'm a little tired. It was worth it. So you're starting to like humanize the room. And it takes all of like 5 minutes, 7, depending on the size of the team. And it's probably the thing I recommend most, or I'm like most urging clients to take on because it's such a simple practice. We know it's the start of a meeting. Maybe it's our team weekly meeting. We're going to do this thing to just inject a little bit of humanity or play or whatever it is. And it, 5, 7 minutes at the top of a meeting is not threatening anybody's business, but yet it's making so such a more effective culture and team because we know each other and we like each other.
Mm.
Another similar one is I love asking the question, what's the most hilarious solution to our problem?
Oh.
And so that's when I just pull out of my back pocket if we're like, oh, shoot. So we're actually like sort of behind on this timeline and we have this other dependency and the team needs this. Like, oh, what are we going to do about it? Okay, what's the most hilarious solution? And then it it can be anything. It could be like, well, let's send Joe to the ops team and maybe he can sing our status update. Maybe he can record it singing, send it to them because they're a little bit mad at us right now for being behind on our timelines. Maybe a singing gram from Joe is going to lighten their mood and also tell them where we are. Like, I don't know if that's the solution or not, but it just reorients us to what is a possible and viable and professional, I would say, solution. Because professional doesn't necessarily mean no humanity. It just means doing good work with respect on time. And maybe if you're a little late, you send Joe to go sing about it. But those sorts of little rituals or little micro questions that you can throw in the workday, I find make a huge difference.
I love that. I have a friend who works at the local at the pool, doing some management at the
Hmm.
pool, and he uses ChatGPT to make poems about things. So like
Oh my God, I love it.
we recently had I went to the pool yesterday, and there was an area where they're trying to grow grass, and it was like this cute little rhyming silly poem on the sign that talked about the grass growing. It was adorable.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
thought that's the best use of like AI is just like this fun interpersonal, communication, make it fun, right?
Yes. Um, I know. Yeah, we need to deploy the robots for our own enjoyment, I think. That's a
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
other conversation. But yeah, if the robots are not making us laugh, then I don't think that they're doing their jobs. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Why not? Like it made your friend happy, I'm sure. It made anybody who read it happy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Amazing.
exactly. Why not? Okay. All right. So um your book is the book itself, dear listener, is very playful. It's very inviting. It's fun to look at. And I think a lot of us, read a book about work that is also fun. It may feel a little strange. How can people, you know, besides reading the book, they should do that, but reconnect with our own sense of play as adults, especially if we've been serious for a long time. And this could be at work or at home.
Yeah. Um, oh, so many ways. Yeah. So in terms of the book, as a spoiler alert, there's a crossword puzzle in there. There is a fortune teller you can cut out. And because I'm like, oh my God, if I'm writing a book about fun and it is boring and like just walls of text with research like that, no, absolutely not. So I had fun in creating it. And so to your question, I think there's all sorts of ways that if we believe if we hold the mindset that we deserve to love our days, most days, some days will be bad, but most days we deserve to love our days. Our pleasure is important and we deserve to be laughing and smiling. If we start from that premise, then we start to open up the question of like, how do I want to spend this day? So on the personal side, there's a section in the book about ultimate lounging, which is a term my friends and I coined. If you're getting so good at lounging that it might just become an Olympic sport. And so there were times where we're like, we are killing it. So this was, this could be instead of just like, I don't know, scrolling on your phone while your kids watch a movie and it's how can we be intentional and ambitious about our play, not just our work? So maybe you're getting in your coziest pajamas, bonus points if they match as a family. You're making popcorn with some sort of ridiculous seasoning. Maybe you put pop rocks on your popcorn, and the whole family is like, oh my God, this is nuts. Then you're curling up on the couch. Maybe you have your favorite beverage, adult or otherwise, hot chocolates all around. And maybe you've scheduled it in advance and asked your kids, like, okay, what other like food should we have? If your kids are little, should we set up the stuffed animals? If they're older, lucky for you because you get to watch a better movie,
Yeah.
like, but that's the sort of intentional fun, and not to put pressure on fun. Like that's the last thing that I mean to be conveying here. But I think sometimes we take work so seriously, and then the rest of our lives is like whatever we can cobble together. But what happens when we take our lounging seriously and our leisure seriously? Um, I love a jigsaw puzzle. I'm looking to the right over here because we just started one last night because they are like the most anti-capitalist thing you could imagine, right?
There's no point.
There's
You
no
take it apart when you're done. It's all process.
exactly, right? Like somebody cut it up just so you could put it back together, just so that you can then take it apart again. But I love it because it's such a statement that the joy of doing the puzzle, even though it had no outcome, that mattered. And it's the same is true with kids too. Like spending time with my daughter is not productive in any sort of like economic output. But if I loved the time, she loved the time, or as a family with my husband, if we loved the time, then that's valuable. And I know many times in my life, it's been hard to equate that value with, and yet I could have been doing this thing at work that would have had, some sort of economic value or career value. But just placing importance on the amount of enjoyment we get from our finite days on this planet, I think is the first place to start to prioritize our fun, to feel that we deserve it.
I love that. I love that. Okay, but if there's a parent who came to you and said,
Mm-hmm.
I feel guilty. I feel that guilt for taking breaks or even for enjoying work. I feel guilty for enjoying work when there's a lot to do. What would you say to that parent?
Oh, there's also, I mean, this is all a pendulum, right? Like, I'm not saying, condense your work and then spend as much time as possible with your family. Because work is, I mean, I wrote a whole book about how work itself is joyful. So if you're enjoying work or not spending all of your time fawning over your kids, that's great just for 10,000 other reasons. So for example, this weekend, my daughter, she was going to go ride her bike. She's like, you want to come watch me do these like fun figure eights? And I said to her, you know what, Arden, I love spending time with you, but also I think I need a little alone time. Like, I'm going to read a book here. And she's like, yeah, you deserve a little time to read your book.
Aw.
And it was so sweet. And then actually, after I read for a little bit, I went to go meet her and see her ride her bike. But anyway, I share that story to say that kids seeing us enjoy our leisure, or to your question, enjoying our work is really valuable, because I want Arden to grow up and believe that work can and should be joyful. I mean, she sees me stress out. She sees me get frustrated about something at work, and I'll tell her like, oh, this thing happened today. And she'll be like, yeah, that does sound hard. She's a great work therapist, actually, as a kid. But I love that on the whole, she sees that for my husband and I, that we have fun at work. And I think that that's valuable for kids to see, because then they grow up thinking, I'm going to have a relationship with work that is not based on I need to prove myself, is not based on I need to grind for this impact or paycheck, but I'm going to make sure that in my working days, I'm generally having a good time. And I think that's what we model for her. So I think as a parent, like if you're enjoying your work and you're like, sorry, I got to work on this thing, I don't know, maybe just spend 30 seconds explaining to them why it's fun. Like I'm doing this presentation. I'm going to be working late tonight, but also like, do you want to see it for just a few seconds because I worked really hard on it. I'm really proud of this part. This part we did together with another team and we had such fun doing it. Okay, I'm going to go back to my work now. You go hang out, do your homework or whatnot. And then I think you set a really great example and you're getting your work done.
I like that. Yeah. So if we're feeling that guilt, I mean, I think the guilt can go both ways. Like I'm feeling the guilt for too much work. I'm feeling the
Sure.
guilt for too much
There's so
time at
much
home.
guilt. Yeah.
All those things. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a matter of listen to this podcast again, and remind yourself, take things in that are of the culture, of that you're valuable. You don't have to be you don't have to be a cog. You can be productive in other ways and contributing value in other ways, and it isn't necessarily more. I suppose that is your production. It's the same with your kids. It's not about every second. It's about I kind of what I'm hearing from you from both of this is it's about bringing your full presence to all of the things you're doing as much as you can.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. Like, that's what I want as a human. I want to feel alive. Like, I've got this beautiful day to be alive on this planet. I won't have these days forever. And yet today I have. So, what is the best use of that day? And this is not to stress myself out or create guilt that I'm doing too much here or not enough there. At best, you're having fun at work and you're having fun at home, that you're enjoying your work and you're enjoying your time with your family, your kids, or by yourself. Like it will always be true that we only have 24 hours in a day. And so if the guilt isn't, sometimes guilt is important because it's correcting like a big swing, like a big like imbalance of I'm barely seeing my kids or I'm really struggling at work. But if you're sort of somewhere in the middle of that swing, then the more that we can enjoy our work and model that for our kids, and the more that we can enjoy our kids and also model that for our colleagues, then you've gotten yourself into a positive feedback loop. And, and then most days it's kind of sort of works itself out.
Well, this is fun. Talking about today was fun. Thank you so much, Bree. Bree's book, Today Was Fun, a book about work, seriously, is available everywhere books are sold. It's out now. I think it's a great purchase if you are wanting to have a sense of fun and need a reminder in your life about how to do that. Thank you so much for doing what you do, and thank you for coming on. If people want to find out more about what you're doing, where can they find you?
Sure. You can find me at breegroff.com, BREEGROFF. I'm also on Substack and write there regularly, LinkedIn as well. And of course, you can pick up a copy of the book.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. And
likewise.
I hope people have more fun. Have more fun,
people. Yeah. Yeah. Just wear your crazy socks today. You see what happens.
Wear the crazy socks. That's the bottom line. Bottom line of this podcast. All right. Thanks.
Yeah.